Bats is here. Haven't seen you in a while. Joys of sorting out audio with Zoom.
Open containers. Long time no see.
In the flesh.
Noch einmal.
Hey, there it is.
There it is.
Now we can hear the open containers.
Oh, beans. Mm.
It will never not remind me of your anecdote about being in the grocery store with your open containers jacket on and having a lady chew you out.
Yep.
Oh, I have not heard this one.
Mothers against drunk driving. Mad.
She was mad.
She was mad. How dare you talk about having open containers? I support open containers. Yep. All right. Probably about time we cull some of the HackMD notes and put them to a markdown somewhere. The page is getting long.
Morning, everyone.
A lot of times I notice when it gets long when we're past a year mark. How far are we this time?
Yeah, past a year mark is good. September
Yeah, we passed a year
2022.
mark. Yeah, it's time.
Half the time when my browser's slow, I find it's because I accidentally left that HackMD open.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's very heavy on the JavaScript.
I'm just glad it renders on Safari now.
Yeah. That's good.
Nothing like going to type my name in, and then all of a sudden it appears.
The lag, it's real. I just went through and put everybody in. Figured it easier that way.
Thank you.
I'm almost. I thought I was up to date on recordings, and I'm already almost a month behind.
We keep having discussions. How dare us?
Big wheels keep on turning.
So I think today the only agenda items are doing pull request reviews.
That's good. Well, just moments before this, I finally was chewing through some to-dos. So I was reviewing that 1030 that's been up for comment for a little while from Aaron. But happy to jump into some other ones if there's high priority stuff.
A good first one or set of them to look through might be Ram Kumar. Am I ever saying your name right? Correct me if I'm ever mispronouncing it. He's got a few out there for conformist testing that I think would be good to look at.
It's just a list of items. We can go over them one by one.
Sure. Would you like to drive?
Sure. Share my screen. Okay, let's go with this one first. So in this test, what we have is there is a variable called delete manifest before blobs. And that was initial, I think the way Josh wrote this, I believe, was he set it as false first. So he wants to, by default, delete blobs first and then the manifest later. So which I think is somewhat of a dangerous operation to have by default. So we just flip that around. So what we are saying now is by default, because we have the blobs API and the manifest API, you can delete blobs, you can delete manifests. So I think the safer option is to enforce the delete manifest before blobs, because once blobs manifest gets deleted, then it's no longer visible to users under normal circumstances. And then so this is the patch for that. And if you want to test the other way, then you just need to set the environment variable, and that will test the other way.
It looked good to me. I know we've also seen, was it JFrog? One of them was asking about making the whole blob delete. I'm not sure if optional is the right word. I know they've asked for us to not hit it so hard on the conformance. And that's why their conformance run doesn't even do some of the content management. It's because of that check. And outside of us doing it in conformance, maybe a few clients do, but almost none that I've ever seen actually delete the blobs themselves directly. So for me, this one looked good. I haven't submitted a review yet just because I like to go through and actually run it against a registry or two and make sure it looks good.
Okay.
With actual testing.
All right. So feel free to review and leave comments. Fix accordingly. The other one was so this is not by me, but we can go over them anyways. So I believe the author here intended to test that the empty layer is also deleted. So when you push an empty layer in, we are also able to delete it.
Or just, or at least I'm only seeing a white screen from HackMD right now.
Oh, am I not sharing the?
There we go.
Okay. So I think this is the crux of the test. Yeah, I don't know if the author is going to circle around and fix this, but if not, we have to adopt this peer and then push it in. So, but comments are welcome.
Yeah, it's been a while since I looked at this one.
Yeah.
I do agree. We've done this delete manifest code now a few times, and so we might be turning Reggie into some kind of little higher level abstraction here to
Okay, so that's one.
yeah, the big problem, I'm just getting back to looking at the delete manifest code that I was commenting on earlier. There was the whole skipped empty layer test, and so they might not have actually pushed that empty layer manifest.
Yes, there is that problem. Yes, if you have not pushed it, then this will fail. So
Yeah, so they need to tweak that up. So if they're not going to revisit, the other option is to take their PR and pull down the
tweak it.
code, put the change on top of it, and push the second PR on top on a new branch. And that way you can, if you're rebasing on top of theirs or adding a commit on top of theirs, then it's just going to say signed off by both people at that point.
Okay, so there is a reference types conformance test. So this is a PR that I pushed out. So this is a slightly larger PR. This is basically testing the references work. So let's go to setup.go first. So the way this is set up is we have a new environment variable that you can turn on or off. Based on that, this test will be run. And this is all the setup for that. So on and so forth. And then the image.go. So we are not depending on image spec upstream to give us these types. So we are actually building this in. So there are no additional. So we have to put this in here.
Yeah, I haven't gone to look to see why we've been doing that in the past. That's a little funny. We have to copy that code across. But that's not something to fix in this PR. That's something just to look at in general of why we're copying image spec, basically vendoring at that point.
So so this test has been, I mean, it's just a copy of one of the existing tests and then just tweak it a bit. So, I mean, you can just go through it one by one, I guess. So, so we push the empty JSON blob. We make sure that it matches the hardcode value. And then Brandon has been iterating over this quite a bit, so I've been fixing his comments.
I just resolved that one just a second ago. I think you've gotten all of my comments in here. And so it's on me right now, just same as the other one where I need to actually run this against a couple of registries, double check everything before I put my thumbs up. But overall, it's been looking good to me. Okay.
So the idea here is we push the empty blob. The two cases we test is we push the image and then we push a reference to that image. The other case we are testing is the opposite. We push the reference first and then the image later. So both cases are being tested here. This is the test. The after
and of course, every time I read through this one, I find one more thing. So I did put a note in there for Josh to take a look at the warn code at the very end. That's way down at the bottom, but I just want to have him give a second set of eyes since he knows a lot of this conformance code in there of what we're doing with that warning function, just to make sure that he's happy with that. He might have to refresh to see my comment just got added.
Okay.
But it's at the bottom of the setup, setup line 497.
Yeah, where the warning code is. Yeah.
Yes.
So it's good to call. Oh, okay.
Here and there, it's just all the way at the bottom.
Okay. Yeah.
There you
So
are.
I added a new method here. So this is one of the things that came up with during the discussions is so the conformance test will enforce the must conditions, and then it will warn on the failed should conditions. So this is the warn case.
Yeah, and I like doing this for the non-must use cases in terms of, hey, you should be doing something different than that. I pinged Josh on that one to say, hey, is this, given that he's done so much work on some of this code in the past and there's some of these other libraries, are there different ways that he would prefer to see this done or not?
Yeah.
But the overall concept I like of, just make the conformance on the must and everything else just for the user.
So in the reference code, this is how we do it, right? So the OCI filters applied, you may or may not support it. Regardless, the output should be correct, but when you don't support it, we issue a warning like this.
Yeah, at least at some point I was debating going through some of those checks instead of saying is equal to 2 or 4 to make sure it's at least 2 and at least 4, and then to look for items within the list. I figured that was more effort than we needed for a conformance test. No one's going to have other data in here already. If they do, they just need to give us an empty repo.
Yeah. Okay, this one is so this one is a long PR, so feel free to review this.
Overall, I really like this Sajay Toddy, or maybe even from the Docker Hub side. If you've been looking at this at all, thoughts on adding this conformance code against your registries? Any pros and cons against it?
This is to push referrers before and after, right? I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've had that scenario tested internally, so I think it's no concern from our side.
Yeah, so feel free to take this patch and run it against your registries, and if you have any comments, please post and then we'll take it up. So at least we have the tools that we can give to the folks outside,
right,
outside of this room. So
yeah. I know that I broke some of my demos against SOT, and so I was pinging Ram Kumar on that one just because I said, hey, all my reg client code broke against yours. So that's where I was adding them both before and after.
The one thing is that RC3 has a couple of headers and how we test for headers and things like that. I don't know whether this test actually covers the OCI artifact referrers header in there. It does, right? It does, right? Yeah.
One of them there on 238, and he's got another with the subject one on a few other lines there. So
yeah,
we
so
were testing both of those.
That'll break, but I think in general, the scenario of pushing the referrers before and after is covered.
Yeah, the filters applied is that's a conditional, right? So we check if you've got it, and if you don't have it, since it's optional, we just throw a warning out there. And if you do have it, we're just making sure that it really did apply the filter.
Right. What about the OCI subject header as well?
Yeah, that's in there as well.
Yeah, so those will break for us because we haven't implemented RC3 yet. So,
Okay.
but in general, I think this looks nice.
And this is for 1.1 conformance. So if a registry is 1.0,
Yeah,
you're still fine there.
Yeah, and then you can control it, right? So if you don't want to test the reference, just unset the environment variable, and you're good to go. Okay, I think that's all I had actually. Was there? No, there is one more. That was. Yeah, this one. So what this is testing is also by default we are testing whether a zero layer image manifest can be pushed to a registry, and the zero layer image manifest is a should condition. So that's why we put a warning. So this was the other style of doing the warning. You could just skip it, but the issue with this is the output is nice, except that anything past this will get skipped. So I don't particularly like this. It works in this situation, but I'm not a fan of this model. But the main idea is to make this value off by default.
I would say whatever model we go with, and that's where I got confused last time because I was looking for the other version of the warning. I found this one instead.
Yeah. So this is
whichever we do. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was not sure which one we would pick. That's the thing. But I think we should pick one.
That's where I was going to go. Is whatever we pick, get both of these on the same design. And so, if folks here have an opinion, great, chime in. If otherwise, I pinged Josh on this one just because I was hoping he might have some ideas. Yeah, and then we'll get this down to a single implementation.
Yeah, so this is a limiting, right? This this functionality is limiting because then you can only use it in certain situations. I prefer the other generic one in the other PR, but anyway, that's my opinion.
You've spent more time looking at this than I have, so I will delegate to you for now until I've had a chance to really dig into it.
Okay. So I think that's all actually I had. So that's it.
Cool. Saji, I saw you comment in there. You pulled one item in. You want to drive for a bit?
All right, let me see how we can share.
I can if it's easier. I know you're mentioning it since VBATS was here.
Yeah, right.
That's the hint for VBATS to turn away for a second and pay attention to us. I'll go ahead and share it.
I guess you and Vincent had the most comments on that, so I think it's better if you folks can agree on that.
Yeah, and I've gone back and forth. I went ahead and threw out my example. I need to go do pretty pictures like other people do in theirs. But I did put somewhere down here of, there is an example sitting out there if folks want to look at this, that it just implements one of these where, since we're throwing the subject on an index, you can do this funny little thing where both the client is pointing to a digest and the subject is pointing to a digest. And if those are the same digest, you get in this case where you go down to this and you loop back to that, depending on client implementations. And so I wanted to give people a chance to say, test their client against a specific, specific bit of code and see what happens.
So maybe I can quickly comment. I don't know if Vincent is still listening on the call, but one thing is that I spoke with the Auras library folks, and they said they don't have a problem with this primarily because it's walking down the graph and it's just two paths. It's actually not forming a loop in any way. So they're okay if the images are all still kind of like pointing downwards, and even if it's the same image or the subject refers, it might be okay. So that's one piece of information I can add here.
So the case here is you would look at this digest, the 569,
Mhm.
you would find this image. You would ask this image what refers to you. So you call the refers API, and you would get back this index up here because it's got the subject field defined in it. And then you would go say, well, what are the child objects of this one? And so you would find, here it is on this case right there on that line. So you iterate through the manifest here, and you go back down to this one, and then you say, what refers to me? You go back up here.
That feels like a pretty quick and easy check.
Yeah, I mean, maybe implementation wise, it's stored as a graph, and if the nodes have been copied, it doesn't walk down that node again. That's kind of how we implemented it as a DAG inside. So
It's how I
should
had to
be
implement
okay.
on my side. but
Right.
I've never had to write that code before for other cases before. And so what I'm worried about is how many
Is
foot
it,
guns are there out there?
is there ever, is this just because it's possible doesn't mean it's actually a problem.
It's similar for me to when we were worried about the media type being an optional field, and we said nobody should really be generating a manifest that has both manifest and layers in the same manifest. But just because they shouldn't doesn't mean it's not possible, and they couldn't do something bad if they did that.
Yeah. I don't see a problem with this. It's if you're checking it and you already fetched it, then it seems like you could have a pretty easy to handle list of digests that you've already checked or fetched. So what else do what was the other hang up on this review?
This was the big one from my side.
Mm-hmm.
The caveat I'll say, maintaining a list gets more complicated when you throw in concurrency. Concurrency throws all kinds of loops at me.
As my kids always say to me, that sounds like a you problem, not a me problem. No. No, I get that can be challenged, but that's a solvable problem.
The other big one that I had thrown out a few times was, let's get some actual use cases out there, people showing where they're doing this. And the one that John had thrown out was saying, hey, I can have an SBOM index in addition to the image index and have all my SBOMs in one place. And the response was, well, that's nice if you do that, but then what happens when someone does this to you and just starts throwing other SBOMs out there that you think are there but aren't really there? You have a conflict depending on which level you look at.
I didn't have a pretty picture, but I did call out the conversation with CNAB. They couldn't use the index because of the lack of artifact type and things like that in the index. And so completing this would have enabled them to do that as well. So it's more than just the hierarchical index or SBOM that the scenario would enable if you kind of like made this too. And that's why I was more excited about this.
Specific to CNAB, we are back to all those days. Do they want to push all the images together in the same structure, or do they want to have external references to those images? Because I feel like I remember them pointing out to saying, we're going to pull an Nginx from this one repo. And
yeah, so one of the things was they wanted one of the manifests to be an image. And so they wanted to use the index, but that image is like a driver image that kind of like installs stuff and runs stuff. So it's almost like an initialization image, but that is not the actual application, right? So being able to author something that composes multiple images as well as calling it something was what the use case was. And they had to step away from using the index primarily because there was no artifact type. It was not, I mean, it had to be sitting inside a config of something or use an annotation or those kind of things. So anyway, the point is that clearly there was a use case they did come around and they kind of like stepped away because they couldn't do it. So I think this is an opportunity for us to at least make those use cases happen going forward and not leave the index out this time, right? Like we've done that multiple times where the image is kind of like the thing. But there's quite a lot of value in the index is what I feel.
I'm just staying quiet here and quietly scrolling, give people a chance. But we're also very good at being crickets here lately. So let me do this. Somewhere in there,
Sometimes I feel
can-
like some of these conversations should even have a link to the, I know you have to go through the Git history, but some of these examples and conversations are so useful. It feels like they should be more closely attached to the docs.
I've had a lot of people ask me what the heck artifact type is used for, and exactly that. We need more
All these visuals and
documentation of the use
stuff.
cases in the scenario. Yeah.
Mhm. So does
I'm
this
not
need to
throwing my own
be,
thumbs up on this, but there are 2 on there already. So
well,
someone with power, if they wanted to, could. Now this is subject
no,
if we do it this week.
it's blocked since you requested changes, I guess. So what are the
I
exact changes?
just took that off.
You should be able to merge it.
Yeah, I just dismissed that. I will say we want
Brandon,
to
thank you.
include-
I mean, I know that you have reservations on this, but I really appreciate it. The thing is that we should call out the concurrency use case because we hit that for the tag schema. So I didn't want to talk about it till you took it off, but the tag schema has the same problem. When you try to copy over a bunch of things to update manifest and remove manifest. So it's not like the concurrency problem can be solved just because of this.
Yeah, it absolutely does. That's how the loop example that I've got out there is working right now.
Right.
So yeah. The other one to point out, if you're going to merge one, you should probably merge both, which is 1066 is the other one. So
N66. Which one is that?
that's adding the artifact type in there as well. So if you're adding a subject, you should also have an artifact type.
Mm-hmm.
Now we define this in Markdown. This is one of like 3 places. So if we merge this, now we need to go in and update the JSON.
Yeah, I was about to say this needs the JSON schema and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Aaron, I think I saw you on the
He's-
call.
He commented that he couldn't make the call today. He put that in the chat. I would say, I know this has been sitting out there for a while. You do have 2 approves on it. I hesitate to say merge the spec in a inconsistent state, but That's the question. Do you merge this and put a separate PR for the other parts, or do you push this off until we get all the different spots all updated together?
Yeah. Yeah. Anybody want to open a quick PR to addendum to this?
I'm okay if you want me to do it. Jason schema, right?
JSON schema and the Go
The
spec.
test. Yeah. I can comment on that if that helps.
Those were all the reviews we had on the list today.
Sorry, I had to turn my attention away. Did somebody volunteer themselves for
Sajay did.
sacrifice? Oh, Sajay did. Go.
Sajay's a good sport for this stuff.
Glutton for punishment. That's what he is.
I think he sees the value more than I do, and so he doesn't mind putting his name in.
Yeah, you gotta have skin in the game, right? Like, so, okay, fine. We'll do it.
Were there any others from this list that we want to look at, either on distribution spec or image spec, to look at today?
So just to confirm, we can merge the docs and then I'll follow up by end of before the next call for the schema PR.
Yep.
Cool.
We are just about done on image spec now. Anything left on, is this one we just did, or is this? Aaron has been back and forth on this one for a while. This was the must not generate an error.
The only I'd have to go chew on the comment that as a registry operator, if it imposes things like what Sajay's comment was, I reviewed the changes before I read all the comments. But this one line was the only one that was like, that must not alter. Like, I agree with it, but if the intent was just not to generate errors, or like if things are not.
I think this one saying must not alter is trying
Which
to
is
say
fine.
we're a content addressable store, so you never
Yeah, I'm
change
just saying,
content
is
addressable
it
data.
yeah, which is like I said, completely agree with it. But if it's just as far as like supporting use of artifact, use as an artifact, slightly different than the topic of the PR, but I don't disagree with it, so maybe it's fun. But as far as the Sajik's comment was kind of like, if you basically have customers wanting to tune which media types are known, basically. So like in my registry, only image types are known. Everything else, could be ignored, or whatever, maybe even aired on. I don't know. That could get kind of tricky.
Yeah, I was on a customer call last week where they said they wanted to disable pushing like image types, and they wanted to use like a specific file type only, a bicep modules or something that Azure stores, and they said they want to use that to store like NSG rules and things like that, and not allow any other artifacts in there, because they wanted to use that as a sharing mechanism, but they don't want that to become a pipe for images. And we're like, no, we don't support that right now, because you can masquerade anything as an image. But they were ready to kind of do the work of kind of like blocking stuff, cleaning stuff and stuff like that. And
well, I mean, even in the confusing wording that it's been right now, is basically, well, like, must error if the image type or if the media type is not known. And then
Right.
you're like, well, known to who? Like known by what methods? Like I could create my own FizzBuzz media type and now it's known to me. But for some extensibility use case like that, now you're saying like, here's a method or a way to define them, whether it's like a HTTP accepts header or something like that, or like these are the things that are configured for this endpoint to be known or accepted or whatever. Like that, it gets interesting. Maybe. So if this wording allows for that, then that's fine. Or if there's a small tweak that we could make to allow for that, but
No, I think in general the wording is okay. It doesn't confuse anybody. It just kind of adds over what an artifact type is. So, me, it doesn't actually make any like significant changes to how we interpret the spec. So it's fine.
I know we were going back and forth over this a while back. It was thinking that there were those registries that wanted to only allow Helm charts and a few other things they knew about, but not allow any arbitrary. And yeah, I think like Sajay saying, one of the comments that came back from that was, well, you can just impersonate anything you want to. You can pretend you're a Helm chart, even though you're not really a Helm chart, and get allowed onto a repository. So if it's malicious content you're worried about, this wouldn't stop that. Anything else we want to go over today? Or if folks want to back 15 minutes, spend more time doing PR reviews? Or chase small children running around? Mike, you came off mute there. Is that how you wanted to have time to chase small children around?
Never mind. I did do a review of what did you guys discuss? You had a couple of items on distribution.
Yeah, we
Anything I
we
missed?
discussed, we even merged a couple, which was impressive.
Okay. Good. Looks like there's quite a stack on the 1.1. Did you guys want to try to close image first and then close the 1.1 stuff on distribution, or?
A lot of stuff that's outstanding on distribution is conformance, and Ram Kumar has been doing an awesome job on that. So we reviewed a bunch of those to start with. And the only reason I haven't put my own green checks on is I haven't had time to actually spin it up and run against some registries and make sure it looks good. But it looks good to me in general.
So there's a lot of open 1.1. That's what I meant. Yeah.
I keep throwing stuff under there so we don't forget it before we hit a release out the door too.
Okay. That I was wondering. I was like, wait a minute.
Like,
yeah, question if whether 423 should be in there or not. I did a review and I think it should be in.
if there's anything I've missed, feel free to tag it
Okay.
for the milestone.
Okay.
I'm
Will
not
do.
the best at that.
Put some eyes on it. All right.
Yeah, 423 has the 1.1 on there.
I put it
And
on.
yeah. Oh, okay. And yeah, that one, I think we'll get that one knocked out here pretty quick.
Yeah, it just needs a README update, I think. We haven't really had a chance to do guidelines for migrating from one conformance version to the next, and we probably do need to do some updates for that. And this is changing the default, so I figured, yeah, let's hit the README. So that, other than that, the change looks fine.
I think the thing I really like is we'll have all the conformance stuff in there when we tag it. And so we can always fix a slightly funny conformance if it's being overly strict by making it less strict. But it's really hard to go back afterwards and say, hey, we never even tested for this at all. And people say they're 1.1 when they're not really.
Yeah. Yep.
Cool. Well, I'll give everybody back 15 minutes.
All right, everybody. Cheers.
Awesome.
Oh,
Thanks,
quick
Al.
question.
Oh, yeah.
Vincent, do you want to, or Brandon, do you folks want to merge 1030? It's been sitting for quite some time, so, and nobody's besides you or me have kind of commented on it, so there's no big issue that we want to block on, then it might be worth, just want to be like sensitive to Aaron also. He's been on the call for like so many weeks. So
Yeah, he has been very can't think of the best word for that, but very accepting of our difficulties in trying to get anything through the OCI spec. And so I took any of the blocks I had off on there, minor only comments. So if someone wants it merged, I won't raise a stink at all.
Were there any other particular contrary opinions to that one? I don't think I see anything folded in.
I think most everything in there was just saying, hey, let's make sure if it's for a registry versus for a client and something else. And I think he went through a bunch of them and got it cleaned up.
Mm-hmm.
If there's something really bad and we need to clean up again later on with a follow on, we can always do another PR later on if we miss something.
Yep.
Cool. Thanks, VBATs.
All right.
All right. Take care, everybody.
See you, folks.